you're doing the research. You're
Yes.
making sure that you're doing the front load of this process and making sure that like we're going to get the subpoena because I've researched how this company is going to actually fulfill the subpoena, right? But talk more about like that's on a case, like that's different for every case as well.
Well, first of all, divorce attorneys are up here with stress, right? Like there is so many, like working with a forensics like yourself, right? There's working with forensics, there's working with the emotional taxing. It's very emotionally taxing to deal with people that are going through divorce, getting the right information without the whole story, all of those. So there's a lot of people that touch divorce cases, I should say, to get them through, or they should at least. Now, this is an interesting story because I also have my own podcast, and I've been a graphic designer for many years in branding, and I am doing all my own podcast production at this point, and it's a lot of work. However, this is what I say to attorneys is just because you can do subpoenas, just because I can do all of my podcast production does not mean that that's what I should be doing. So this is what I say to them is that when you've got a specialist in any of those areas, like a forensics, right? Because sometimes attorneys may also want to do forensics, and that's maybe not their specialty. But this is my specialty because of the research that I do, because every single subpoena requires it can require more, some are requiring more research on that and less research on it. So having, with everything that they have going on, and just like this paralegal that we had 18 years, she's very, very experienced. I'm sure she's done 1 million subpoenas in her lifetime, but doesn't mean that the one that she did that day, she didn't do it right, so it got rejected. There's 1 million different reasons for it to get rejected. I don't even know why it was rejected. I just know that she's probably got this much workload, and I could take that off and send her the instructions, and she was like, bam, it went right through.
Yeah.
So it's that part that I do that I love. I mean, it feels like, my mom calls me Bulldog Becky Brockovich, right? she just does, because you give me what the subpoena is, and the first thing I do is go research, and every jurisdiction's different. So that's another thing I love about it. It's not always a cookie cutter thing, but that's also what trips up a lot of attorneys, because they would rather, they've got too much on their plate. They need cookie cutter, and this is just not a cookie cutter thing.
Well, and I think that everybody wants to, like, you don't want to charge the client a ton of money to do a subpoena. So you want to just be like, okay, let's make it easy. Let's just send something out. But at the end of the day, and that's when, like we've spent a lot of time talking about like what your specific way of doing things is. And from my standpoint, it comes back to like, you're almost like a subpoena consultant. Like you're coming in and saying, these are the best practices to get this subpoena fulfilled. You even, like at this point of this recording, are guaranteeing that if you're doing some of the research, that subpoena is going to come back and receive the information. But at the end of the day, I think you're sitting between like the client and the attorney and saying, hey, we need to get this information. It may be a little bit more unique in the subpoena world.